strong on quarantine. The federal government's done a hell of a job. A lot of incredible things are happening. Finally, these two quotes, we're beating it and we're winning the battle. Now, back in the real world, it's been a hell of a 24 hours. The U.S. went over 100,000 cases. We lead the world tonight and then some. 8 days ago, we reported 18,000 at this time of night. Today, the president signed that $2 trillion rescue bill, and he is now officially using that Defense Production Act, allowing him to basically take over supply lines and force companies like General Motors to make ventilators.
Ventilators are a big deal, and we've delivered thousands of them, and oftentimes you don't need ventilators very much. Hospitals don't have very many, and now we're turning out that we have to produce large numbers. We thought that we had to deal with, as an example, General Motors, and I guess they thought otherwise. They didn't agree, and now they do. They do agree.
Last night you told Sean Hannity you didn't think that there was a need for 30 or 40,000 ventilators, yet today you basically federalized General Motors to produce tens of thousands.
Well, I think there's a very good chance we won't need that many. And I think, frankly, there's a great chance that we're not going to need that many. But you know what? There are a lot of other people that are going to need them. We have countries all over the world that are friends of ours, and we will help those countries.
For days, this president has resisted using that Defense Production Act to mobilize private industry. This morning, he attacked GM over a supposed deal to make ventilators and suggested he'd be taking action. There have been days of reporting from across the nation about growing and severe shortages of critical medical supplies. Images like this, a New York neurologist wearing makeshift personal protective equipment while trying to save as many lives as possible. Governors have been begging Washington for help. We're told by Trump, do what you can on your own. Here now a sampling of the problems they are facing.
Yes, states are competing against one another when we're purchasing things. There's no question that's happening.
It would be better if we weren't living at a time when we were competing with other states and, in fact, the federal government, which often buys it out from under us. But that's our reality.
But this is not the way to do it. This is ad hoc. I'm competing with other states. I'm bidding up other states on the prices.
When I called these ventilator manufacturers, in one case, they told me I was competing with FEMA to acquire ventilators.
I stand here as someone who has had confirmed orders for millions of pieces of gear evaporate in front of us. And I can't tell you how frustrating it is.
That allotment of PPE didn't cover one shift. We as Americans shouldn't be bidding against one another. We should be able to harness the federal power to ensure that everyone's got what they need.
Goes without saying, these governors aren't making stuff up. This afternoon, the president complained about the governors who are not showing enough appreciation.
I want them to be appreciative. I don't want them to say things that aren't true. I want them to be appreciative. We have done a job the likes of which nobody's seen. When they're not appreciative to me, they're not appreciative to the Army Corps, they're not appreciative to FEMA. It's not right. These people are incredible. They're working 24 hours a day.
NBC News reporting Trump's push to reopen our country by Easter Sunday getting resistance from within. Aides are worried that giving specific timelines or dates could backfire. There was some evidence watching that briefing today he might be dialing back a bit.
On Monday will be the end of the 15 days to slow the spread of the virus. Do you expect that you will simply renew the guidelines, or do you expect that there could be some modification?
And we'll be sitting down on Monday or maybe Tuesday, depending on which is the best for everybody, and we'll be making that determination, okay? We'll be making it. And by the way, obviously, we're not doing it for New York. We are talking about possibly other parts of the country which really aren't affected to any major degree, or maybe we won't do that because maybe at the advice of a lot of very talented people that do this for a living, they won't want to do that. They won't want to expose anything. They want to do it all at one time. These are the kind of things we'll be talking about.
Today, on the day, House members had to rush back to Washington on virtually empty aircraft to vote on that emergency relief package in a socially distanced House chamber. We learned that a fourth House member has indeed tested positive. The reason for the House member's hasty return at a time when travel is strongly discouraged, one guy, one Republican member of Congress from Kentucky, Thomas Massey, there he is. He failed in his attempts to force a recorded, not voice vote, and the bill was passed. Most of his colleagues are furious at him. Some said so out loud on the House floor. Tonight, the White House released this photo from the president's bill signing a few hours later. Couple things here: the lack of social distancing, the lack of even a single Democrat. At least the president handed out pens to everybody standing behind him shoulder to shoulder. So now they have that keepsake. Let's hope that's all they have. Speaker Pelosi was not invited to the event, not even as a courtesy. It was a straight party line gathering.
We saw the president sign the bill, and he was a dangerous president. It was so sad to hear him say as he signed the bill, just think back 20 days. 20 days ago, everything was great. Everything was great. And now, 20 days later, we have this challenge. No, 20 days ago, we had nearly 500 cases, 17 deaths. We had a threat that he chose to ignore.
Meanwhile, as New York remains the center of the outbreak with the most cases, New Orleans, Chicago, Philly, and Detroit are also seeing a surge in cases. The numbers are on the rise in Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis has decided to issue a full stay-at-home order. He's focusing on keeping visitors out of the state. There are now even checkpoints into the Florida Keys to keep tourists away.
I will be adding to my New York executive order. We will be requiring the same for travelers from New Orleans, Louisiana, and other parts of Louisiana to self-isolate for 14 days. So the vacation rentals will be suspended for 2 weeks. If you're in one now, then finish and go home.
Hey there.